Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. It seems like Ross this year is really doing a lot of heavy lifting with the team. They're not qualifying well necessarily, but he's really pushing it and pushing them to a higher level than almost even better than we've seen him before. What have you seen from Ross this year?
Well, I mean, exactly that. We don't have a speed right now that we've had the last couple of years, and the sport kind of ebbs and flows, and teams have periods of a lot of winning, and then get passed by, and and have to kind of regroup or re-engineer the team to get back. That's kind of like where we're at right now. And Ross is he's such an elite talent, and he's really. One of the founding members of this organization. And, what I've said sort of throughout the years, like, the problem that we have to diagnose is the fact that we don't unload with a lot of speed. Like, we have to do a lot of work on the weekends to put races together. And the execution that Ross and a lot of the teams inside of Trackhouse have is really, really good on Sundays. It's just really hard to do it in this era of the sport. If you're starting 25th, 28th, 30th, whatever, to get up there is really, really difficult to do. And I think as we go through the process, Ross is very invested in the rebuilding process and really helping us kind of diagnose, where there's gaps in the organization, where we need to, be focused on things to get us back to where we need to be. And we've been working really hard on it, and we unloaded with really good speed this weekend. Obviously, had a problem in practice, went to the backup car, started last, but the confidence was really, really high. When we wrecked this car on Saturday, and I was sitting there at the car in the garage, and they were pulling parts off it. And Ross left the infield care center, and he walked up to the car. He had a huge smile on his face, and he was like, "I know this sucks." He's like, "But that's what I'm talking about. Bringing cars to the racetrack like that. That's what I'm talking about." And he was just super pumped. And that's just him being super invested in the process. And I think Ross is in the conversation of the best drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series right now. And he shows that when he goes out there and puts the team on his shoulders right now as we try to rebuild.
Part of his evolution, it seems like, if you go back to 2022, 2023, there's a lot of races. He had a lot of speed, a lot of laps led, all that stuff. Wasn't getting the finishes to correspond with it, right? And now, though, it's kind of the opposite. So what is his evolution as a driver where he now kind of looks at the bigger picture and is kind of sees, like, maybe I don't need to be so, lack of a better term, impatient, if you will?
Yeah, it's experience. I mean, it's experience and understanding, what it takes to be successful as a NASCAR Cup Series driver. And I think if you look back through time and you look at some of these really, really talented people that have shown up in the Cup Series and just had all this talent and all this speed, but not a lot of experience, sometimes it was problematic at the beginning. I think of like Brad Keselowski, and I think like some of these guys that showed up and ruffled some feathers, and then they figured out how to sort of settle into a place where they can harness their talent and their speed into a way that's really productive in the races. And I think that's the evolution that Ross has gone through, is that he knows how to take that speed and deploy it when it makes the most sense, and how to really put full races together. And I think it just comes with time and experience. He's a very, very intelligent person. He's very cerebral. He really digests the races when they're over and looks back through them. And I think, he just had to go through the experience of understanding where the give and take is and how to really be a complete driver, and he's done that.
Jacobs Gilman, Race Face Digital. Justin, to your right. Two for you. First, Phil was in here and talked a lot about the just the environment of the rebuild Saturday night. It actually got me thinking back to something you said. I think it was after Suarez's win at Atlanta last year, about the culture that you've tried to really build and invest in at Trackhouse, to have guys that are willing to give up their days off, come in, spend that time, lose sleep, and then pay it off with Ross getting a win like this. Is that what you're talking about when you're looking for this kind of relentless effort from your guys and your crew that goes into making this successful?
That's exactly what I'm looking for. I mean, this weekend, I think, was a masterclass in never giving up and grinding. And, it wasn't just the one team that built that car last night. I mean, it was people from all corners of the organization that said, I'll drop what I'm doing and drive to the shop and help. And and because because we've all been working so hard the last month and a half to sort of turn this team around. And at a time like this when we unloaded and we were so fast, and it was like, man, like we're starting to get there. Like we can feel the thing kind of turning around, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. I stood in front of everybody at this organization, the first day that I took ownership of it back at the end of 2021, and I said, we have everything that we need to be successful here. We just got to work together. We got to believe in each other, and we have to fundamentally believe that we can do it, that we can go win big races and contend for championships. And if we support each other and go the extra mile and do whatever it takes, then we can get there. And I think this weekend was a beautiful expression of that. And I am so, I don't want to sound romantic or whatever, but I am just so unbelievably proud of everybody, because what they did this weekend was very, very, very difficult, and it was truly a team win. Putting a race car together, building a race car last night, bringing it to the racetrack, starting last, making good changes, good pit stops, good strategy, and then to what Jordan and I were talking about after that last pit stop, just putting it on the shoulders of our amazing race car driver Ross Chastain to go punch it into victory lane. It's incredible.
Obviously, so much focus tonight on what Ross did, and rightfully so, but you had the fourth car out with your young talent in Connor Zilich, and I'm curious, obviously, start two for him, so there's a lot to be looked forward to. What's your assessment of his early evolution, not just in the couple starts in the Cup car, but really on the Xfinity side, and what do you hope or see his progression or pathway being over the next couple of years as you work to develop him?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes Connor special is his rate of adaptability, and I've seen it a couple times in my life. There's a lot of talented race car. There's a lot of young race car drivers that are fast, a lot of guys that are talented. So it's like, how do you kind of look through all of those people and find the couple that are like the real standouts? And to me, it's really rate of adaptability. I mean, Connor's been incredibly successful the first time he's sat in cars and the first time he's been to races, going out there and just figuring it out really quickly. So, I think that he's having some ways a difficult season at Xfinity, but incredible amount of speed. He's had some bad luck, whatever, but he's won a race. He'll go to the playoffs, and luck will come his way, and he'll make a run for it. And then in the Cup car, this is a development driver of ours. First time we've ever really had a development driver, and I think development means supporting him on Fridays and Saturdays when he's over at JRM, and allowing him to have access to the tools and the company and everything, and then getting him experience in the Cup car. You have to these days just put him in the car and throw him out there on the racetrack in the Cup Series, because there's no practice and there's no testing, and so when we're like, hey, you're 18 years old. We think you're on your way to the Cup Series pretty quickly. We got to just put you in the car, and obviously, putting him in the car at COTA, a racetrack that he's been to, done a lot of road racing, you kind of eliminate as many new things as possible so he can learn kind of the flow of a Cup race. And then after that, we'd circled this one on the calendar because he just gets a lot of laps. He just gets to go out there and race for 4 hours and just get a ton of experience and learn, restarts, coming on and off pit road, all that kind of stuff. And so it's just part of getting him exposure, to the Cup car. We'll see what his future holds, but right now it's like we have a mechanism in the company to put that extra car out, like we've done with Project 91, and we just want him to get that experience. No expectations for results or anything like that. He got, when the 84 went around today and he had some contact with him, it tore the underbody off. He just was tight the rest of the night. So then it just became like, okay, let's just make the laps and kind of learn the flow of the race. Figure out how it's going to tax my body racing for 600 miles, just all that kind of stuff. So it's just, we have an opportunity to give him a learning experience, and we'll continue to do that. But the Cup Series it's a different sport than the Xfinity Series. I mean, it is just so difficult, and the only way to learn and get ready for something like that is just go out there and do it. We've seen it in the past that guys have moved up too quickly, and it's been difficult for them. So, we're being very measured in our approach, and we're talking about what his future. We don't know what his future looks like right now, but we're happy that he's in that JRM car. We're happy that we're getting him laps in the Cup car. And we have a lot of faith in his ability. We think he's a really, really special talent, but we have to be intentional and mindful about how we bring him up, because we want to certainly give him the best opportunity to succeed.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Justin, certainly Shane's Chicago win was a signature moment, but the first crown jewel victory for this organization comes just down the road from the team shop. What is the significance of this moment for you personally, but also for the whole of Trackhouse Racing?
I think for me personally and the whole of Trackhouse Racing are the same thing. I mean, I'm a team person, and I'm like, it doesn't matter what I feel about it. I mean, to me, it's about the team. It's about getting a bunch of people together that believe that we can go do things like pass Hendrick Motorsports with 10 laps to go in the Coke 600 and win it. Like, we just believe that we can give our drivers the opportunity to do those things. And so I my mind raced and I forgot your question, but. Yeah, thank you. So, this is obviously you have these marquee events, right? So, like the Daytona 500, I've got my own opinions about the Daytona 500 as a race, but I think when you have these tentpole events that have a lot of history and they're meaningful, it carries special significance because obviously this is the only home game that this sport has, and we have a lot of people that don't typically get to go to the races that come out for this race, and we have wives and girlfriends and kids and everybody comes out to this race. And people that work so hard, 365 days a year that don't actually get to go to the racetrack and watch the race cars, they're here tonight. And a ton of sponsors and a ton of fans. And then, when you look at a race like the Coke 600, you can't look at a race like this and not envision, Dale Earnhardt driving through the grass here and Jeff Gordon's first win and like these big moments and all this big history when they first built the racetrack and all that stuff. So, it's a moment that holds special significance for everybody in the company. And it's a moment that, that it's an honor. It's just an honor to win here because it's such an important event to the history of the sport.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Justin, compared to some of the established car owners who've had success and been in the sport for a long time, you're just still a youngster and still learning, going through that process with being in a few years. And I'm just curious, what are the lessons that you're learning that you feel like are going to help you close the gap with Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske at this point? Because seems to be those three teams and then a gap to others. Everybody's kind of fighting for that. How do you close that gap, and how are the things that you have done right or maybe didn't do right the last couple of years to get back up to get into a space like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I mean, I would answer that by I'm still learning that. That fundamentally drives my days every day, is trying to figure out what it is that makes those organizations as successful as they are. Now, if we want to be intellectually lazy, we can just say, well, they just have more money and they have more people. And I think that that's certainly important. They have a lot of resources, and that's very important. So, like, if you look back in 2022, we had 20 winners, 19, whatever it was, 20 winners in 2022, and then those teams that have all those resources, their learning and their development curve is quick because they've got the resources to put behind it. And so, you come to a year like this where, okay, you had Wood Brothers win, Trackhouse wins. Other than that, Seabell's 3 in a row, and Gibbs has, Denny has 2, and all that. So, how do we close the gap? I mean, I think this car represents an opportunity to do that. That's why I'm here. I mean, I would not have started Trackhouse and raced in the Cup Series if they didn't go to this race car, because I think that it provides an opportunity to close the gap. What have I learned along the way? This is a people game. I mean, I do really work hard on trying to get talented people motivated to do really good work. I mean, I feel like when I sit up here, I say a lot of cliches, but it's true. I mean, it's really true. You can have an organization with a lot of money and a lot of people that can't figure out how to all work together and put fast things on the racetrack. That's certainly possible. We're not as big of an organization as those three, but we do continue to grow. And right now, I think provides an opportunity for us to relook at that delta between us and those big teams as we go through the struggles that we are right now. We're looking at things like developing a more robust aero department, looking at the way we structure our engineering, looking at those things to make sure that we get back on the development curve with those three. So it just takes very thoughtful examination, and it's a process that probably will never stop, because Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Penske Racing are just very, very strong, talented organizations. And I think the fact that we've won 9 races in 3.5 years, it's a lot of motivation for everybody in our company to just keep trying to work towards that.
Justin, today we saw Kyle Larson do the double. I think you've expressed interest from a car owner's perspective. Obviously, a frustrating day for Kyle, admittedly so. He kind of expressed the notion that the double may be, because of the time limit, the time between the races, it just might not be a feasible thing. From a motorsports perspective, when you look at the big picture, how important is it to have somebody do that for motorsports in general? And is that something that needs to be looked at, if there's a way of widening the window a little bit to help this? Or, because it seems like at this point, this notion, at least from a Cup driver's perspective, may be dead.
Yeah, I mean, my heart breaks for Kyle. Kyle's a friend of mine. I mean, we were business partners. We owned a race team together. I know how important the Speedway is to him. You know, I'm a believer that I don't think motorsports should be in competition with each other. I don't think the industry is big enough for us to be trying to make things difficult on each other. I think there's strength in collaboration between the two. So, you know, I think in the way the world is right now, you know, live events, especially live sporting events, are becoming more and more powerful and valuable in this increasingly digital and detached world. And I think that we have an amazing product. And cars going around a racetrack at 200 miles an hour is an incredibly visceral, like authentic, raw, amazing experience. And there's power in that. And I think that certainly, like the tide that raises all ships is a real thing. So, like, if I was running everything, I would do everything in my power to make sure things like that double can happen, because I think it's an amazing opportunity for NASCAR fans that want to watch their favorite NASCAR driver, maybe watch the Indy 500 for the first time, learn about Indy cars, learn new stories, all that, and vice versa. So I would, you know, I don't know if you like change the schedule of the day, but I think that people need to be working in a direction to try to make it happen versus trying to not make it happen.
Shane Connick, Charlotte Observer. Congratulations, Justin. So Ross Chastain now becomes the first driver in 54 years to start in the LAC and win a NASCAR Cup Series race. So when you look at the team and you think about everything that you guys have been sitting up here talking about the past 24 hours, what does this mean for the number one team? Well,
you know what's funny is, and we had this talk in Victory Lane, it was like Tony Lunders, our competition director, came up to me and he was like, man, it just seems like all of our wins are like, there's no boring win like that Trackhouse has had. It's all like some kind of story. And it's funny how that happens. Like, you know, it happened at Chicago with, you know, with Shane and everything. You know, it's really neat that our wins typically have like some kind of historical context around them, right? Like Ross winning at Phoenix, being the first one, I guess, in the modern era to win that wasn't in the championship, for, you know, Daniel finishing, you know, winning the closest 3-wide finish ever, like those kinds of things. And then a really, really cool stat like that. I think it's just really a powerful testament to everybody that works for the team and that chipped in this weekend, chipped in last night, ordered the pizzas, stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning, got there, you know, before the sun came up to button up the car and everything. You know, to be able to look at all them, they're all tired right now. They've been working basically 48 hours straight. They're on their way home right now, and they're going to lay their head on their pillow. They got to be at the shop tomorrow at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Some will be there at 6. And, you know, to say something like, you guys did this, you went and got the backup car, you built it overnight, you brought it to the racetrack and became the first person in, I think you said 54 years, you know, to win from last place in the Cup Series. It's an amazing thing to put your arm around them and say, like, you deserve it. You did that. That's an honor that you have.
Deb Williams, Auto Week. Congratulations, Justin.
Thank you.
To kind of build on what Dustin was asking, when Richard Childress started building his team in the 1980s, he said he wanted to bring people in who had never worked for another race team because he wanted to train them in his way. He didn't want someone else coming in with bad habits from another race team. How would you like to go? Would you like to bring someone in that's never worked for another team to build that camaraderie in the way you want it, rather than having to deal with maybe bad habits from other race teams?
Well, it's an interesting question, because as we look at, you know, where it's difficult to find good people right now to work on these race teams, especially ones to travel. And so as we've looked to kind of expand our organization and hire, you know, we have spent time exploring where we could find people that have the right framework of experience and talent to work on race cars that maybe haven't worked on race cars before. Like, for instance, if we could put a training protocol in place inside Trackhouse and and be able to hire from like the aerospace industry or something like this, where the addressable market of talent is so big, and you've got so many talented people that are really good mechanically and good working on things. And you know, maybe they leave SpaceX and they're building rockets, and now they're building shock absorbers for the one car or whatever, and like we can train them. We've had that conversation. And it's kind of sexy to like think about that and to kind of like, you know, do things a little bit different. But there's something that's very, very proprietary about racing. And there's something about, especially in NASCAR, when you're racing every single week and there's a culture in the garage area and all of that, it's very, very difficult to train for. So, you know, what I did is, you know, when we took over Ganassi and we kept, you know, 125 people that were working for Ganassi, and, you know, we just were very intentional and impactful about changing the attitude in the shop. We did, like, you know, not that Chip was doing anything wrong, but just because my way of doing things is just different, that I really wanted to identify and execute a real clear delineation point between the end of Chip Ganassi racing and the beginning of Trackhouse racing. And then just daily, like, investing in the work experience and investing in relationships with everybody that works the business. So, you know, to answer your question, I think there's an opportunity to attract really, really great talent from other industries. But you can't start from nothing these days, just because, you know, the tech process and like understanding the rule book and, you know, the dance of kind of like traveling every single week and the culture in the garage is just so difficult to teach somebody. So we kind of try to run that balance between getting people to understand what NASCAR racing is all about, but also are open-minded to looking at things in a fresh way and maybe like forgetting what they've known before and are open to accepting maybe like a new attitude or a new culture or anything like that.